Hi, everyone. Flying into the Louis Armstrong International Airport, I used to love looking out the window and seeing New Orleans, the city that for years I called home. I moved back to Pennsylvania, but I would still go back to New Orleans once or twice every year to visit my mom. And I was always so excited for those trips because I always loved New Orleans. It was always so much fun to me. And I romanticized the city of New Orleans so much that I actually got a New Orleans symbol tattooed on the back of my shoulder. I was obsessed with it. I was always really happy to be there. And my plan was after I graduated high school, I would move back down to New Orleans to go to college. And for whatever reason, I was always just really ready to get out of Lancaster. I always wanted to be in New Orleans. And every time I was flying down there, as the plane would get closer and I would look out the window and start to see all the water and the swampland that was nearby, I felt giddy. I just felt like I was going home. So when I was flying out of New Orleans in August of 2005, I felt nothing but fear because I was leaving right before Hurricane Katrina. My memory is a little bit fuzzy from that time, but I think I was supposed to spend about another week or so down there visiting. And then when the news came of the hurricane and the news got worse and worse and they kept upgrading the categories, it was clear that I had to leave as quickly as possible. I'm pretty sure I got one of the last flights out of the airport before they canceled all flights completely. I know I had this feeling of like just barely making it out in time and just feeling that relief. My mom and brother had to stay in New Orleans because my stepdad was a New Orleans police officer, so they couldn't evacuate. So I came back to Pennsylvania, and a few weeks later, school had started back up. And I was supposed to be focusing on my schoolwork, but I was having a really hard time doing that when weeks after the hurricane, I still hadn't heard from my mom to see if they were okay. When I left New Orleans, I knew it was going to take a while for them to get in touch with me, but I didn't think it was going to take weeks. I I don't think I understood really how bad things were going to be. I think a lot of people in New Orleans who were not able to evacuate or chose not to evacuate, I think they didn't understand either. But weeks after the hurricane, we all got it. And so I couldn't concentrate on anything. I was becoming anxious and depressed. More weeks went by. There were these online message boards and hotlines you could call to see if a family member's name had been posted, so that if somebody located them or if they were able to update their name, that if anyone was looking for them, they would know they were out there. Kind of like Facebook today does. If there's like an earthquake, your friends can mark themselves as safe. Um, so that's what we had. And my sisters and I would check those websites every day. We would call the hotlines. And all we could do was just wait and wait until finally our mom called. Much to our relief, she said all of them were okay. They had all survived, but only after spending weeks living in the Superdome and then living outside of their apartment complex where they could find shelter. And then finally it was safe for them to go back into their home and they could get in touch with us. So flying back into New Orleans after Katrina, I just felt like I had lost something. I no longer wanted to look out the window and see the city I loved still underwater. I didn't feel giddy anymore. I didn't feel as excited because when I did look out the window, what I saw was flooding everywhere, abandoned houses, destroyed neighborhoods, FEMA trailers in people's yards. And this was years after the hurricane. Still to this day, if you drive through some parts of the city, you'll pass by houses that have these big red spray painted tallies on front doors that the search rescuers did to mark when they searched the house, who searched it, and how many dead or alive bodies they found inside. So it was just really grim. I just lost the butterflies in my stomach that I had for the city. And I remember going into the French Quarter with some friends one day and just tried to have some fun, but it was really hard to live it up on Bourbon Street when I knew that 10 minutes away in the lower Ninth Ward, there were so many families who had lost everything. And most of those families were never able to come home. I mean, they didn't have a home to return to at all. So I felt so much for those people. Eventually, my college plans had changed and I wasn't able to move back down there. I had to stay in Pennsylvania. And I was pretty disappointed about it at first because at the time I was a dumb teenager who was just like way too cool for Lancaster. And I just always wanted something bigger and better. And New Orleans, for some reason, it always felt bigger and better to me. And just the little things, like my stepdad used to take us on these day trips to Mobile, Alabama to get lunch at this place called Dreamland Barbecue. We spent my birthday weekend with a road trip to Florida. It was not just New Orleans, it was the South and the way that we lived down there and all the things that we did. And as I got older, I started to realize it's really easy to romanticize a place where there's no work and no responsibility and everything is just focused on fun. Then it was focused on fun because I was usually a visitor when I was going on those trips. So sometimes I still miss New Orleans. I miss the food, but I'm vegetarian now and most of it was seafood anyway, so that doesn't matter. I miss the warm, friendly people of the South, but the friends and family I've made up here in Lancaster are my people now, so that doesn't matter. And the thing that I loved the most about New Orleans was the culture. And for a long time, I feel like Lancaster lacked that. But if you look at Lancaster now, I mean, this place is a haven for refugees who have brought culture to us through their food, their art, their music, and their stories. And all of that has made Lancaster such a really cool place. And so, because of that, I no longer have any desire to move. Sorry, my lights just went out. Hope you guys can still see me. I no longer have any desire to move back to New Orleans because I'm kind of happy where I am here. And I feel like moving back to New Orleans would be just that. It would be moving backwards. And ironically, in order to see the New Orleans symbol that I got tattooed on my shoulder, I have to physically look behind me. And so that's where I'll keep the city too. Thank you.